Welcome to part 2 of our Confident Coach series. And today we are talking about how to build the best client experience for your people. Hey, I'm Amanda, and welcome to the Best Damn Coach podcast, where I will teach you how to coach yourself, how to coach your clients, and how to run your coaching business. The number one goal of this show, though, is to help you be the best damn coach you can be so your clients go out and tell the world about you. So let's do the damn thing. Welcome back to our Confident Coach series. This is part 2. If you haven't listened, you're just diving into this week because you missed last week. I really encourage you to go back to listen to part 1 because we really looked at the definition of confidence. I gave you a formula for confidence and 3 tips to really go out and take action to up-level your confidence without having to change your circumstances, without getting more certifications, without getting more clients even. And this is an area where I find a lot of coaches struggle is, how do I feel more confident in my abilities if I haven't necessarily served a person or many people? And so that episode is definitely for you, especially if you find yourself saying some of those things. And so as we dive into part 2, we are leading up, by the way, to after this 3-part series. So the last part will come out next week, is our entire coaching skills week, which is a free 5-day challenge that I am hosting to help you feel more confident as a coach, practitioner, or leader and really become the better coach that you most desire. The reason I cultivated this week is I had so many of my existing coaches say, like, I just want to be a better coach. I want to be the best damn coach, I mean, pun intended, that I can be for my clients. And that has nothing to do with business strategy. If you serve people and you create face-to-face results, this is a week you definitely do not want to miss out on, because over the course of the 5 days, I'm going to be teaching you how to understand your client more and understand how they're showing up for you. I'm going to teach you how to meet them where they're at. I am going to show you how to really take the most simple, powerful teaching, I think, of all when it comes to coaching and implement it to your particular niche. I am also going to show the one area that most coaches miss that drastically prevents them from really following through and getting the results their clients are after. And then, of course, we're going to finish out the week talking about how do we repurpose and leverage the results we do create with our clients to get more clients. So head on over to amanda-walker.com/skills to sign up. It's totally free as soon as you join. We are going to give you access to the workbook we created for the week. You'll jump into our free challenge community. We're going to be there to hold your hand the whole time. We are going to be hosting the challenge. Forgot to mention the date, April 24th through the 29th. I'll be live every day at 10 a.m. inside the challenge community. That's Pacific Standard Time. If you can't be there live every day, no big deal. We have all of the recordings available for you. I'm giving away some epic prizes. I'm going to be coaching you inside there every day. I give homework assignments. So literally by the end of the 5 days, you have transformation. And that's the whole point of a challenge is I'm not just going to spew a ton of content at you. I'm actually going to help you be a better coach by the end of the week. So again, join me at amanda-walker.com/skills. So as we head into this part 2, the thing I'm going to be focusing in on today is how to build the best client experience. Now, everybody listening, we've purchased something and either the experience was so amazing, we're like, I want more of that. Or the experience was so horrible, you're like, I want to leave a review and tell nobody to go to that particular thing again. I want to talk about a couple of my experiences over the last year that have been a really big learning curve for me as a coach. And I'm going to be really transparent about the first one because it was when I invested $25,000 into a coaching program. And I had been looking in my business to really find a place where I could learn the ins and outs of how to build out a funnel in my business around one particular piece of content that I really wanted to repurpose. And I shopped, really dwindled down to 3 particular programs with coaches who had been suggested to me. I interviewed them, hopped on sales calls with each of them, and I narrowed it down to this one. And on that call, the price was shared, the investment was shared, And I was like, yeah, I kind of knew what I was getting into. I was prepared for the investment. I don't have a problem with the investment. Right away, an email followed. I was like, okay, I'm in. And, how should I pay? And I said, I wanted to pay, in a payment plan. And what they didn't communicate to me. So I said, okay, here it is. How does this payment plan work? And she's like, oh, wait, actually, I gave you the old pricing. And I was like, what? You're the salesperson and you gave me the old pricing. And inside I was like, well, I really felt aligned with this program. I really felt aligned with this. Was a red flag for me. And she's like, it's going to be blah, blah, blah. And I think it ended up being like $2,000 more or something. And I replied back and I was like, wow, I'm a little bit surprised by that. Like, that's not what was verbally communicated. And she said, yeah, well, this is the pricing. And I thought, dang. So I had this red flag, but I ignored it. I ignored it and went and just said, okay, like I felt aligned. I'm going to go ahead and pay the extra. And once I joined, it was kind of crickets. Like I didn't hear anything for, almost like a week. And I thought, man, this was like a really freaking big investment. And so I emailed like, hey, she's like, oh yeah, we're just getting everything ready. I was like, okay, well, it's been a week. Like we're ready. We only have a year in this program. Like we are ready to go. And I selected this program also because I was able to bring my OBM and we were able to be in it together. And she was going to be taking the tech side. I was going to be taking the content curation side. We had this whole thing planned out. And then we get going in the program. The content honestly was great. It was more like a DIY manual. And they had in the beginning these open coaching calls. So you were able to hop on a phone or on a call and just ask your questions. That was something that I had verified on the sales call that was going to be available, was like open coaching, because I know myself and how I operate the best. Well, about 3 months into the program, they cut that off and there was no more open coaching. It was just content-based calls with no opportunity for Q&A. And she said, well, and this is an assistant again, not the direct coach, because I still hadn't had access to the direct coach at all, as was told to me. And she said, oh no, the only way to ask questions is now in the Facebook community. So it's like, okay, no problem. That's fine. We can do that. And so then the first question I asked was just about getting some feedback for my webinar. Is there anybody that can just like look at the slides and give us some feedback? And she said quickly, we're not at liberty, or we don't have enough space and time to give anybody one-to-one feedback. And she cut the comments off on the post so nobody else could reply. And man, I felt very unseen and unheard. I'm not going to go into the rest of the logistics, but I learned a lot through that program, how I would never want my clients to feel. I made this wild investment, and the way I felt from that is I didn't feel, and part of this is feelings, right? I had to do a lot of self-coaching on myself to show back up in the community and make the most of it. But what I learned is I want to create the most amazing client experience ever for my people. And I am not perfect at this, by the way. And perfect, the most amazing client experience means different things for different personalities types. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But what I want is to help you start thinking about, how do you want your people to experience you from the beginning? And I've also had the opposite of this. I've shared this story before. I'm going to just share a story about a dinner that I had. Justin and I went to New York City before, I think it was fall of 2019. And we by chance fell into this steakhouse that the hotel had recommended. And from the moment you walk in, you're very greeted. It's this old kind of had so much character, kind of dim lighting, and very much greeted. The door was open for us. And the moment the door is open for you, you're like, oh, I just feel welcomed, right? We walked in and there was a small wait, but he's like, can I just escort you to the bar? Feel free to grab a drink. Like, he escorted us to the bar. We had a cocktail while we waited. Our seat then opened up and the whole night was just great service. It was a team of people. It wasn't just the server. And we got small talking, and Justin was going to be flying out to, I think, Romania at the time. They were from Romania, had ties there. We made this beautiful connection. Well, fast forward during the summer of 2022 last year, I was there with a whole bunch of girlfriends. And when we left, he had given us his card and said, if you're ever back in New York City, come back. And Justin had taken that card and kept it. And he said, you need to get in touch with them. And so I did. I texted him and I was like, hey, it's Amanda. I know you probably don't remember me. My husband and I were there, but we'd love to come back. I'd love to bring my girlfriends to the steakhouse. He said, I'll have a reservation for you tonight at 9. We were at the theater that night, so we needed to go late. When he saw me coming, he knew it was me. He was like, Amanda, he gave me a hug. They escorted us. The meal was beautiful. They ended up bringing out and over delivered these beautiful platters of dessert. I was like, I became a lifelong fan of that steakhouse. Every time I go to New York, I will go to that steakhouse. And that's the kind of experience that I want you to have with your people. I want you to think about when I go through some of these highlighted pieces and some of the elements of how do you make that, create that environment inside of your business? And I don't think it's any one thing. I think it's a combination of many things. And so the first thing I would encourage you to do when looking at your client experience is to map it out. Like get out some white paper, get out giant sticky notes. I want you to think about where first does the client first experience you? Is that social media? Is that your podcast? Is that your speaking events? And then what are the little touch points for you? Is it then, you interact in the DMs, or is it a sales call? And after the sales call, what's happened? When they say no, what happens? When they say yes, what does that look like? Because all of that is the prospective client. Once they become your client, then we really want to look at the client journey from there. So that's kind of like the sales funnel part, which you should know. The client experience really starts once they say yes to you. And what do you want from there to happen? So after they say yes, what happens? I've just been working with Justin on this inside of his knife business. And because he's grown very organically, very fast, one of the things that we both feel is missing is just more cultivation of connection from the moment somebody purchases a knife. We want them to know why he started this business. We're a family-owned business. He literally is in the shop on our property making knives. We're US made. We want them to be connected to the story of the business and the experience so that they know that they are loved. And it's not just like a knife going out to somebody. We want the same thing inside of our business. So we sat down and we mapped this out over a lunch date, and we mapped everything out, and we looked at what are the gaps and what are the opportunities for growth and what are we already doing really well. So once they say yes, one of the most important parts, so I'm going to kind of go from the beginning of the journey and start to think and put this into steps. And so you can go into the show notes too and kind of see these steps with more granularity. And if you have questions about any of them, please feel free, of course, to send me an email or a DM. So once they say yes to your work, the question then becomes what's next? And a really great book that I'm going to recommend for this topic is Never Lose a Customer Again by Joey Coleman. But one of the things that I loved inside of this book is he really talks about that buyer's remorse feeling. It's like once you've said yes to something, especially a high ticket offer, and you're like, oh my gosh, did I make the right decision? Was this, oh no, I don't know. Am I going to get the results? It's like when you buy a big car and you drive it off the lot, you're like, oh shoot, was that really a good move for me? And so then what we want to do is reduce that feeling. We want to take that opportunity to show up very quickly for them and just solidify that they just made the best decision ever. And you get to decide how you want to do that. Do you want to send a custom video that you made for them? Do you have an automated video that you're going to send, an email that you're going to send at that moment? It's before you can do anything that you're going to put in the mail for them. What are you going to do at that moment to really say, yes, I've got you, I'm holding you, and welcome them into your coaching? So this is making sure that they're not ghosted at this period and that they're waiting a week to find anything out like I shared with you. So step one rather, is reduce the buyer's remorse feeling. Step two is to welcome them. Find a way to make them feel very welcome into your coaching. And this is the opportunity that I would say is not necessarily welcoming them, but really establishing an emotional connection as to why they matter. And this could be sharing your why. This could be here's how I fell into coaching or leading. Here's why I started my business, why they matter. Whatever the case is connecting at an emotional level. And the other thing I really like to do during this part is let them know I see them. Let them know that I am familiar with the pain points of where they're struggling. For me, I like creating a video that really talks about, I've been there, what it's like to not know how to grow your business, to feel kind of a lack of confidence. This is inside my BDC program, by the way. And that's why we created the BDC, was to help you build self-belief, to help you know that you have a gift that the world needs. And so I'm really building them up to let them know that they've made an amazing decision and that we're going to create amazing results together. And again, you could do this very personally. If you have a few clients, you can custom do this. And as you grow, this might be an area that you can scale a little bit and create automations around. The whole idea is letting them know you've got them. You are with them on this journey, that they are not lost. They are not a number. They are a human being that is being served. One thing I like to do as just an added bonus is send a welcome gift of some kind. Sometimes these are personal. Sometimes I have more generic options depending upon the ticket, right? The high ticket versus a more moderate ticket. But I send something to them, even if it's a handwritten note, you guys, just to know that like they are so welcome in this community and we are so glad that they are here, right? Or as one-to-one coaching. I also have sent journals. Sometimes I send customized bottles of champagne that say different things. Sometimes I've done baskets of little, I don't know, like trinket things that make sense for what they're doing with me when it comes to coaching. So I use kind of this robust idea, and I can put some of the links in the show notes of some of those ideas as well. And some of my favorite distributors and vendors that I've used as well that are great. I love Ethical Swag. She is based out of Canada, former client. She does amazing product work like journals, etc. One Hope is a alcohol delivery service, but you get to customize it. And for every bottle you order, you get to also give back to a charity of your choice. So there's some favorite ones that I love to send to the right person. So now you've welcomed them. And I think a great option here is if you do have a team is to also let them know that there's other people that are helping behind the scenes. So give an opportunity, if it makes sense, to introduce to your team. Like, hey, this is so-and-so. They're going to be behind the scenes doing this. This is so-and-so. When you send a message to this inbox, this is who may reply. These are the seats that are being filled, to let them know that you're not necessarily doing this alone. If you are doing this alone, you don't have to do this part at all, but this could be something that you really take into account as well. At this point, I think it's also, if you haven't already, I want to mention this. This is also a great time to just walk them through the systems and the processes of next steps, right? I usually do this pretty quickly in the beginning of bulleting. Okay, number one, let's do this, fill out this form. I don't do this right away. Here's why. I don't want to overwhelm them. I don't want them to be like, oh, shoot, I got all this stuff to do. I slowly trickle this out. My goal in the beginning is just build belief, reconfirm their decision, let them know I've got them, and then I can enter in some of those next steps. Sometimes we just throw like, here's the whole kit and caboodle. Good luck. And they're like, oh, shoot, what did I get myself into? Time is already an area where often we need coaching around. And then if we give them all this stuff to do, they're kind of like overwhelmed. So think of this as just an opportunity to trickle in little drip by drip some of those pieces. But really, you're just like, I want to nurture them. I want them to have this amazing experience. Now that's kind of like the onboarding process, if you will. And let's talk about the rest of their time together. I think a really important part of creating a client experience that is impactful is making sure that there is clear communication on expectations and boundaries. So this is an opportunity for you to make sure that this is clear through a contract. But I actually like to, on the first call, come back to some of those important things that matter to me. Like, it's my expectation they book their own sessions if they're a one-to-one client. It's my expectation that if they don't complete their homework assignment, that they don't get the next coaching session. Part of the thing I want is them to have results. If they're not taking action, then I'm not going to give them their coaching sessions consecutively until they've done that. And I've just found that in my business, that works really well. And the clients actually love that. So we want to be clear on communication around how do they get in touch with you? What are your office hours or your business hours? Do you reply on the weekends? Do you not? So much of the breakdown between coach and client comes by a lack of clear expectations from the beginning. I'll even drop some links to some previous shows where we talk more about this so that you can bypass this hard learning and learn from me. In the beginning, that was an area where I really struggled, is I didn't set out clear expectations. I just didn't know what I didn't know. And then when I got more clear on setting those boundaries and expectations in the beginning, then it was a much smoother process for both of us, and the client got way better results. I like to look at the journey as just an opportunity to over deliver. Anytime my client, they get what they get as a bare minimum. I kind of look at like the parts of the coaching are bare minimum. But if my client's struggling, heck yeah, I'm going to say, let's schedule an extra session and hop on the phone real quick. Or if they need a connection, or if there's an area or resource that I can create to cultivate that. For me, I'm not like checking the box on time and what they got or didn't get from me. I'm showing up as a coach I want to be, because I know that if I over deliver, then that's going to help lean into their results. And I know the byproduct of that is that they become a lifelong fan and they feel like they have a home to come back to, whenever in the future they need coaching, or if they run into somebody that could also benefit from my coaching, then I become a top of mind for them consistently. I also like to remind an important piece is a great client experience comes from quick responses. And I don't think that this has to be like, oh my God, every hour I'm looking. It's just set a timeline and understanding for them so they know what that means. I will be back to you within 24 hours. And if that for you works or it doesn't, then you're shorter or longer, then you get to decide. Just communicate that with them and make sure you're following through on those responses as well. So as you're delivering, obviously, there's also going to be the opportunities for you, I think, to really capitalize on being able to deliver even better service or to understand your client at a deeper level. And so one of the things that I really encourage is to create ways to collect real-time customer feedback. So if you're going to be working with your client for 6 months, can you send a monthly check-in? Like, I would love to know, how are things going? Or if that's too much, could it be in the middle, halfway through? Like, hey, how are things going? I'd love to know some feedback. And that's going to give you the real assessment for you of what are they experiencing? What are they wanting more of? What's not working for them, so that you can assess, like, am I willing to do that? Does that work for me? And also then how you get to meet that. And then again, what often happens in these is that just more testimonials that you can add to your evidence collection, as we talked about from step 1. A lot of times in coaching, we're telling ourselves stories about our clients that we do not know are factual. Often it sounds like they're not getting results or they're getting really amazing results. And that's just like not necessarily, we're not sure because we haven't really asked, or we haven't created feedback or touch points along the way to find out. We're not asking. And I think another way to do this is just through the coaching session. I will often go back to the first session. And in my first sessions, I create very measurable action steps. Like, how are we going to know you have results by the end of this? What are measurable ways? And I'm going to be talking about this in the challenge, by the way, because this isn't a mistake many coaches make. And I'm going back. I'm like, okay, we're 2 months in. Let's just look at this. When we go back to day 1, when we set our markers, our growth indicators, here's what we said. How are we on that? Where are we at with this? So that I can also go back and really get a touch point from them to see, like, they might say, well, my goals changed. I actually don't care about that as much anymore. Or, wow, I'm really far from that. Can we do more work on that? So it doesn't even have to be as formal as sending out a form or a survey. It could also be just a verbal check-in where you're going back and saying, are we getting the results that we desire? Let's look at data. Let's look at measurable outcomes to make sure. And I think that sometimes we're so inundated with the delivery. This is an area where we struggle, but it's critical to you helping your client get the results that they came to you for. And lastly, I think that to create a really fantastic client experience, it's just leading with the human service heart, is being a human first, and just being able to connect with them, being able to listen to them throughout. They're hiring you because they're wanting support. And often I say, like, the root of all coaching is just, we all want to be heard and seen. And we have an amazing opportunity inside of coaching to help people be heard and seen. And so we don't have to get lost in all the very details. I like the details that I shared in this episode, but just creating that space from each session to give them that opportunity to be heard and seen, and not always go in with a solid agenda on coaching, can just have this like massive ripple impact of how they interact with you and how they really become a lifelong fan of the work that you do and want to go out and tell everybody about you. And so as I share these details, I gave many of them, but I think a take home would be just, how could you choose one thing that I mentioned in this episode, one opportunity, and say, you know what, I'm going to take that. And that's going to be the one place that I go in and I improve my client experience right now. I'm going to start small, bite-sized pieces, and I'm going to make sure that welcome email really minimizes that buyer's remorse feeling. Or I'm going to send a second email that, or send a personal video that really just lets them know why I'm showing up to do this work. Whatever that is for you guys, I am just challenging you to take one thing from this show and implement it into your client experience. Or if you're brand new, the cool thing here is you're a blank canvas. So you could go into the show notes and just look at the steps and the numbers and say, oh my gosh, yes, like these are great opportunities for me from the beginning to be able to ensure that I provide my clients an amazing experience. So I hope that there was lots of nuggets from the episode. As always, if I can serve you, you want to have any conversations about what I shared on the episode, please send me a message or a direct email and head on over to amanda-walker.com/skills to join us for our free upcoming coaching skills week. Totally free challenge that you're going to walk away with like mind blowness around all that you're going to be able to shift in just those 5 days. So have a wonderful rest of your week, and I look forward to catching you on part 3 next week. Every week, I put my heart and soul into this podcast to bring you value and to help you grow as a person and as a coach. And one of the ways, very simple ways you can return that favor is by leaving us a review. So if you haven't left us a review, head on over to Apple or Spotify. Leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what content you love and which content pieces are really speaking to you now.